So Joe Biden is in a high school, and, you know, he's the guy who said, hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15s.
Is they letting Biden in high schools now?
I'm sorry, not Biden, Beto O'Rourke.
Oh, okay.
So Beto O'Rourke is in high schools, and a high school student says, excuse me, you've said, hell yes, I'm going to take your AR-15s, but I go deer hunting, and that's what I use. Why are you taking that away? Now, Beto claims this is the first time he heard that people use those as hunting rifles.
Of course.
Shut that. What do you think they're used for?
Well, it's also, if that's true, let's take him at his word for a moment, then he does not have enough information about the topic to make policy recommendations.
Exactly right. Exactly right. He also said, you know, I've heard about it, you know, in Texas with feral hogs. Oh, so you do know that they are used to hunt things. Okay. Well, that's like hunting deer. Except feral hogs have to be killed because they destroy everything on these ranches. The guy lives in Texas. He is preaching about gun safety and removing a firearm from your house door to door with a sheriff, and he didn't know those were a modern sporting rifle? The guy's an idiot. But he folds to this teenage kid. Listen to what he says.
So this is the first time that I've heard the case made for using an AR-15 to hunt deer. I've heard feral hogs in Texas, which are a real problem on a lot of the ranches and farms in my home state. Perhaps a way to address a legitimate concern or need is to ensure that those who have or want to use an AR-15 are able to keep it at a hunting club or at a gun range, so that there is some control and safeguard still placed on that firearm. But this is why I'm here. I want to listen to those who feel perhaps differently than I do, include their point of view and ideas in whatever becomes the final piece of legislation or the law that we adopt.
This is why I'm at a high school, so I could listen to the experts. So I can. This is the first time you've ever heard that these guns were used for hunting. That's absolutely incredible. What are they purchased for? Seriously, what are they purchased for?
To murder, Glenn. They're purchased to murder. It's their only use. Their only possible use is to murder. This is why, you know.
Well, if I want to get to those feral hogs, I can keep my rifle at the gun range. So all I have to do is get all of the hogs into the back of my truck.
Yeah, bring them over to the gun range.
Bring them over to the gun range, and then I can have my gun there to shoot them.
That sounds pretty reasonable.
You know, if I could put them in, I like to shoot skeet. So if I could put them in, you know, loaded in one of the skeet shooters, you know, where you just pull and a feral hog,
right?
That'd be fun.
That sounds like the Beto sort of policy prescription for this one.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bizarre thing because such a small percentage of rifles are ever used for any negative purpose. And one of the big complaints from the left seems to be we really don't like the guns that work well. Like it's okay if you have ones.
If you have a flintlock, that's fine.
Right. But this one, if it shoots accurately, they even say that. They'll be like, these are precisely accurate. Well, what the hell do you want a gun to be? It's supposed to fire at the thing you want to hit.
I like one where the barrel can be bent both ways. So you never know what you're going to hit. What's in front of you, what's behind you, what's beside you. You never know.
Yeah. I mean, the whole point is that you can hit the thing you're supposed to hit. Obviously, a very tiny percentage of people have decided to use these things in bad ways. Though we saw a mass shooting again this weekend that had nothing to do with an AR-15. You look at many of the mass shootings have happened with handguns or shotguns or any.
Exactly why we should take all guns.
Yeah, and that's the next Beto thing, right?
Yeah, and they should be kept in Beto's basement. You can just go over to his house, knock on the door, and say, hey, Beto, I need my gun. And then he'll say, well, bring the robber or whoever is here. I'll give you your gun. You can sign it out. And then you can keep him. Do not threaten him with that gun.
No.
But you can use your gun, just not towards him, until the police arrive.
That's basically where we're headed.
It really is where we're headed. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Joe Biden. Joe Biden, apparently, according to a new poll, 27% of likely Democratic voters would be dissatisfied with Joe Biden.
27%.
That is higher than the 21% that would be dissatisfied with Bernie Sanders as the nominee.
And, Biden's running as a sort of consensus candidate, right? The case for his election is that nobody's completely offended by his policy platforms.
Okay, so I think this could be true because Biden is the corrupt candidate, like Hillary Clinton, old establishment corrupt candidate, right? And that's what people on the conservative side wanted to get rid of, the corrupt candidate that was part of the system. So I can understand that you don't necessarily like him, but for it to be 6 points higher than those who don't want the avowed socialist who's saying we're going to get rid of the free market, that's pretty stunning. So 21% are dissatisfied with Sanders. 15% would be unhappy if Warren was the nominee. Only 9% dislike Mayor Pete Buttigieg, which is also starting to come up. Have you noticed? I've got a story someplace where they are talking about how, right here, let's see, an emerging scenario where Buttigieg wins the nomination. For a rising star in the party, vastly overperforming expectations in crowded presidential field would easily be considered a victory in its own way. But there's a real reason to think Pete Buttigieg could win this nomination outright. One such rather plausible scenario is starting to develop right before our eyes, and it starts, as these things often do, in Iowa. 2 polls this last week had good news for Buttigieg in the lead-off caucus state. Suffolk University and USA Today poll had the mayor in 3rd place at 13%. More importantly, he was just 5 points off Biden's first-place lead of 18. There were a lot of undecideds in this survey at 29%. They were 4 behind Elizabeth Warren's 17%. Bernie Sanders had fallen back to 4th. So it's Buttigieg at 13, Elizabeth Warren at 7, and Biden at 18, with 29% undecided.
Yeah. I mean, look, there's a case here. Buttigieg is he's a guy that I don't think has really excited Democrats so far. He's sort of boring, but he's well-spoken. He's obviously a pretty smart guy. And he has some intersectionality value for the left. The other thing that's great for Buttigieg is the 2 states that vote first are super duper white. They're like the whitest of the white, the whitest whitey people of all times. And that's the problem for Biden. Biden's got to go through 3 elections before he gets to a large African-American voting base. And it's like, that's where he's super strong. But you lose 3 states in a row, can you survive that?
Well, you have Buttigieg, whose only constituency seems to be whites.
Yep, white and liberal.
Yeah. As soon as you get out of white liberal, you are in trouble with Buttigieg.
I mean, legitimately, when you break down the crosstabs of these polls, he's showing up at 0 and 1% among black voters.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
It's only 0. Only one place to go, up.
That's true. And they can write another article about how he's increasing his support among black voters. I mean, look, Biden has a case here to still make. I mean, he really hasn't fallen apart nationally, despite all the press about Warren. He's stuck right around the same area. The difference has been some of Sanders' support has gone away and has gone to Warren. But Biden's been right around 25 to 27% this entire time. And, he hasn't really fallen apart. His campaign seems to be asleep. I mean, what did you say, the zombie campaign? They're describing it as the zombie campaign. It's kind of apt. I mean, like, think about this. The Biden thing happens with Ukraine and the whole Trump situation. They're going through this impeachment. I made this case before. If you are Biden, you need to take the hand that you're dealt. If you want to win this nomination, you're out there every single day bragging about how Trump felt the need to call a foreign president to get dirt on me because I'm such a great candidate. He knows I'm going to beat him, so he's trying to break all the rules to beat me. I'm the guy that can beat him, and he even knows it. That's the case you're making to the American people. It's the case you're making to raise money. It's the case you're making on every left-wing talk show, but he's not doing that. He's barely doing anything. Let me give you another example. What's going on with Syria right now? Syria, the Kurds, all these battles going back and forth between Turkey. This has been in the news cycle like crazy, right? And what's the fundamental part of this? The Kurds want their own homeland, right? The Kurds want their own homeland. Turkey doesn't think they should have it. Nobody thinks they should have it, right? This entire region, the Kurds want their own homeland. Well, if you go back to the Iraq War, when that was all going on, and everyone was coming up with their ideas, there was one guy, Joe Biden, who actually recommended that Iraq be divided into three countries, right? Where the Kurds would have their own homeland. Now, you can go back and look at that policy and shoot holes in it like crazy, and you could say it wouldn't work and it's not the right prescription. But again, Joe Biden is running for president of the United States. It's his job and his team's job to take advantage of news events and say, this is where the president was. He should be the president, because if he were the president back in this time, he would have done this. The Kurds would have had their own homeland, and maybe this wouldn't even have happened. How can you not be making the case? He's the only guy I can remember ever recommending that policy prescription.
Yes.
It was a big deal at the time.
Huge.
And instead, he just is sitting back as if he's, well, I know a lot about foreign policy. Why don't you describe some of the specifics? Why not take advantage of what's going on? His campaign seems to be completely inept at this. Every other candidate is doing this, and he can't seem to do it.
Okay, so this is from New York Magazine that calls it the zombie campaign, and it's
obliterates him.
Obliterates him.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is from like page 15. It's a strange dynamic. The most qualified candidate in the race, surrounded by an entitled staff who don't understand that they have to fight for the nomination or even the presidency, but without a real case to make beyond a Democratic succession that would amount to an Obama restoration. One person close to the Biden family said, the problem is Joe has no center. He's literally only a politician. That's who he is. That's all he is. Biden is fundamentally a toady. He's just political. He needs to kiss ass. He'll kiss ass. I mean, it is remarkable what they are saying. Of course, Biden is consumed with endorsements, another side of his perhaps outdated political instincts, getting insiders to declare their support meant something when powerful political machines controlled the primary process. But it doesn't have relevance to presidential politics today. And the only endorsement that could matter hasn't materialized. Barack Obama has remained silent on the 2020 primary, even as he saw fit to involve himself in Canadian affairs, endorsing Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. A senior White House official reflecting on Biden's weakness told me Biden should have never even entered the race without knowing he'd have the former president's support. Of course, that was always less of a sure thing than it might have seemed. In 2016, Obama went all in for Hillary, even as Joe Biden was contemplating a run. In the early stages of this race, he didn't just avoid allying himself with Biden, but gestured toward other candidates, including many unlikely contenders, including Deval Patrick, the former governor of Massachusetts, possibly to discourage his former vice president from running. I mean, they do not want him to be president, the far left and the media.